Our second reading comes from the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lead me to lie down in the green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is the word of the Lord. Daniel is a fascinating figure in the Old Testament who has much to teach us today about how to live with conviction in an age of compromise. I'm also going to tell y'all a little bit of history about Daniel, if that's all right. Israel had been taken into captivity in Persia, where King Darius was in charge. Now, when a country was defeated, they had to take on all of the other victors' customs, changing their names and also changing their religion. Daniel went through a lot as he adjusted to this life in exile. One time when he was young, he and his friends Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego got thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to bow down to the foreign god. When God brought them through this trial, Daniel became a well-known for standing up for his beliefs. As he got older, he became a trusted advisor to King Darius and became one of the top 3 leaders in the government. However, just like our government today, there was a lot of jealousy and search for power. And the other top 2 leaders began to look for ways to get rid of Daniel. Since he was well known for his religious practices, they came up with a scheme to make praying to anyone but the king punishable by death. King Darius did in fact sign the decree and ended up throwing Daniel into the lion's den to die. The king was really conflicted about this. When the king checked the next day, he was really happy when he saw that Daniel was not harmed. One aspect of this amazing story is how strong Daniel was in his faith. Daniel had his name changed, his country defeated, the practice of his religion made punishable by death. Try to put yourself in Daniel's shoes. It would have been very easy for him to just give up and to give in to all the things that Darius had commanded. After all, he could have just gone and alone and prayed in his room where no one could see him. And who would have known? He could have just gone along to get along like everybody else. After all, he was in a position of great power. He could have told himself, couldn't I help my people more by keeping my very important job? However, Daniel did not take the easy way out. He stayed faithful to God. Even though it seemed like God had abandoned Israel, Daniel kept the faith. You don't have to be a Christian very long before you find yourselves in a tough position. Being a Christian will put you out of doing things the easy way and doing things that takes courage. You know the right thing to do, but maybe you're being pressured to go along to get along. It's easy to get caught up in what others will think. For example, my cousin's on a soccer team that sometimes plays on Sundays. He and his family had to figure out how to stand up for his belief that he wanted and needed to go to church on Sunday mornings, even if it meant missing times with the team. One thing about me is that I love movies. I love the action. One of my favorite series is Indiana Jones. I love the action, and I love that adventure. In the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Dr. Jones is looking for the Holy Grail, the cup of life. And he is going through all kinds of challenges just to find it. He avoids death for the first two challenges, but when everybody else had gone before him had died. When he gets to the third challenge, he sees that he has to cross a wide chasm with no ladder and only the words, leap of faith. Indiana Jones could have turned back at any moment and given up, but he took that leap of faith, and lo and behold, he crossed that chasm. Have y'all ever had a time in your life when you had to act on faith? Can you think of a moment when you needed faith? Not a moment when your buddy says, hey man, have a little faith in me, but really needing faith with God. We all have trials in our lives, something terrible that happens to make us ask ourselves, how could God let this do this to me? I'm a good person. Why is God letting this happen to me? I think all of us can relate to this. Probably everyone in this sanctuary has had that thought go through their mind at one time or another. Some of y'all might be going through a crisis of faith now. Maybe you have a family member who has been diagnosed with cancer. Maybe you have work trouble or financial trouble. Maybe you're worried about your child. Maybe someone you love is struggling with addiction or depression. Sometimes the test of faith is when you pray for something and the answer seems to be no. There is no healing, no deliverance. Your loved one dies, your house is foreclosed on. So you wonder where God is and why there are bad things happening to you. It is good to ask these questions, because when you are able to ask questions about God and have your faith tested, you are able to find answers and come out stronger from that experience. What is your lion's den? What is that moment when you feel someone or something pressuring you to do something that you know is wrong? Something that you know to be false. Maybe it's at work, what you see in the news, or something else has happened. Or maybe you just feel it's one thing, one bad thing, after another bad thing keeps hitting you in the face until you can't stand it anymore. What is that moment when you're in the lion's den? The truth is that the lion's den can be the most spiritually productive place you can be. The lion's den is where you've learned to have faith and trust in God. It is where you have to ask the hard questions and have yourself tested in some of the hardest ways. The psalm that we read today is one that is very close to my own heart. There's just something that is comforting every time I hear the words of the 23rd Psalm. Whenever I have faced trials in my life, I would think of these verses and feel so much better. Now, my parents have told me that I memorized this psalm at a very young age, maybe 4 or 5. And they told me that they would get chuckled up a little bit, and that whenever I said it, and every time I repeated it, I would say, I will fear no evil. Every time. There's a reason that this psalm is one of the best known chapters in the entire Bible. It is because it truly communicates that we are to trust in God, and He will be with us, just as He was with Daniel in the presence of his enemies in the valley of the shadow of death. I know there may be times when you feel as though God is giving you too much to handle. I felt the same way when my college professors kept giving me paper upon paper upon paper upon paper. I won't say that God gives you too much, will ever give you too much to handle, because I feel that's cliche. I will say that we have challenges and catastrophes in our lives, and that we can be confident in the Lord our shepherd. One of the things I learned in preparing for this sermon was that Daniel was tested in his faith at times throughout his whole life. Apparently, this story of the lion's den happened when Daniel was late in life, at the top of government power. He had gone from being a captive prisoner taken to another land as a young man to being a personal friend of King Darius. I was really surprised to learn that Daniel was estimated to be around 90 years old when he was thrown into the lion's den. I guess this shows us that we can be tested in our faith, no matter our age or our experience. So how can you get faith like Daniel? The clearest message from Daniel is to pray regularly. Daniel prayed 3 times a day. He was known to be a man of God by everyone in town. But how can you stop the lions? You can cultivate a daily walk with God. Cultivate a vital and authentic relationship with God. Everyone here is different, and no one will experience life in the same way. But when you leave this place, go and find your own spiritual path. Open your heart to God and let Him lead you. As you go out into the world today and back to your lives, remember this. No matter how dark and frightening this world may become, no matter how uncertain the individual circumstances in your life may be, you need not be afraid, because God goes with you. God goes before you to guide you. God goes beside you to comfort you. God goes behind you to protect you. God goes beneath you to strengthen you. God goes above you to give you vision and hope. And for this, we can say, thanks be to God.